Yeah.
So it was neat when the video stopped doing the live stream, it immediately showed a different streaming video. Like, you know how YouTube suggests another video? It was live streaming it, but it already had suggestions for the next video to watch that was about like manifest files, because I could just see what was like. So it was neat when the video stopped doing the live stream. So it's playing. Streaming video. Oh, because I think your browser's open here. Another video. It was live so now we're in a loop. So now we're gonna get this whole like, oocha, 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 oocha.
Sorry, that's my bad. Where is it?
So it's playing. There we go. Yes, awesome.
Cool.
All right, so we got away from that, but okay. And you can edit that, because you said you can pull that out at the beginning, so it'll let you fix all that.
It's really cool, like actually in YouTube you can top and tail your video as well as chop out sections in the middle now.
So when I start...
And send it to people. So after streaming, you're able to go see, hear wherever you want to
cut up, yeah, nice.
But that multi-stream thing that you were talking about, they don't do it as yet for mobile.
Yeah.
So you only get the first camera.
Okay.
And also, they don't allow you to swap the entire the video file out. So, like, if you obviously pay for a service like Vimeo or stuff like that, you can do, but with YouTube, it doesn't do it. Cool.
All right. So we talked about live or video streaming. Now we're going to do something a little different. We're going to talk about augmented reality on the web. So let's just get into it. And I think the clicker's set up, so I think we're good to go. All right, so I introduced myself on the last one. It's the same slide. I'm still Doug. I haven't changed. Virtual reality. So this is just a representation of virtual reality. When we think of virtual reality, we think of going into this 3D world that's in a computer space. You might also think about like these devices where you put it on, you slap your smartphone in, you pull it over your head. These are super cool. Has anyone played with one of these or have one of these? A bunch of hands, that's great. They're really easy to get. These are not things that you like carry with you though, right? Ooh, a virtual reality experience, right? No, that's not what they're there. You have it at home, you have it at work. There's 3,000 of them on Amazon and they're cheap, right? They're under 20 pounds. You can get these for really, you can get Google Cardboards for even cheaper. I travel a lot with my family and I knew a cardboard wouldn't last, so I got a plastic one because I figured 20 pounds is better than buying the cardboard 4 times. It's less hassle too. So I just saw this video on my headline this morning. Did anyone see this? So because the cows are in such crappy environments, the cows weren't happy. And so they were like putting like grass and trees and like making the cows think they were in nature. And they didn't find increased yields, but they thought the cows were happier. So like, rather than improve the living conditions of the cows, they're putting VR headsets on cows, which is ridiculous. But I saw this headline and I needed to put it in my talk because like, that's ridiculous. What? I don't know why they would. I would imagine, I mean, cows are pretty smart. I would imagine they'd walk towards it. I don't quite get it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe he's like she's playing a game. Who knows? So augmented reality, does anyone remember Google Glass? Did anyone have one of those? I did. I went to that. That's the only Google I/O I've been to. So that was like my intro to augmented reality. Like I could get my email like right up here. You'd have to go up like that and it'd give you the subject line of your email. Best sunglasses I've ever owned. So people, when I wore that, they were really worried because there's a camera right there and there's this huge blowback when people were wearing these. And the blowback was, well, maybe he's recording me. And what Google didn't want to tell you was around the side, there's a little thing that was about this big where the battery was. If I was recording video, I had 90 seconds max of battery life. So could I have recorded strangers? Yes. Would I have gotten any tweets up here for the rest of the day? No, because the battery would be dead. So like the reason people weren't recording total strangers was that the battery life was pretty bad. We're now moving to things like this. And probably the most common one that you've heard about is the Hololens. Has anyone played with the Hololens? They're really neat. This isn't a Hololens, but they kind of look like this. And you can actually like use your fingers to pinch things in real life. And like you can put like, you can have like spreadsheets hanging down in front of you and your face. I was talking about this, I was in Finland and it was at this meetup, and this guy showed me this HoloLens app he built. And the app was actually for an asphalt contractor, a paving company. And so what you can do is he could pinch at each corner of the room and it would measure the area of the room. And so if you're measuring driveways for how much asphalt you need, the person who went out to do that had to measure with a tape every dimension. With the HoloLens, it would actually map out the area and give you the square meters in like 3 minutes. And so like, while one of the problems with the HoloLens is of course they're about $3,000. But if you're a company and you can do 20 measurements a day versus 3, you're going to end up paving a lot more driveways and you'll make up the price because you've just like streamlined the bottleneck of the process. And so they actually realized that, I mean, basically all the app was measure the area of the flat area that I'm, measuring, and they could get it where the error was so low that they were just doing it was really a neat idea. And not something you would expect like an augmented reality app to do. Like that's generally not thought of, I would imagine, as a high-tech industry, but it was. Of course, the problem with the HoloLens is it's $3,000. So again, this is not something that the average user has. It's enterprise, hardcore gamers, someone like that will have something like this. What a lot of people have is a smartphone, right? Billions of these are out in the world. So if you can do augmented reality in a smartphone, you're going to have augmented reality for a lot more users. And, immediately available to lots more users. Pokemon, right? When you think augmented reality in a smartphone, people think Pokemon. And going back to when I worked at a carrier and when this came out, do you remember when this came out like 4 summers ago, it crashed all the time? Like it just constantly crashed. And I was working in app performance at AT&T, and they're like, basically like every single carrier was freaking out because it was crashing on every carrier. Is it our network that's causing the problem? Well, if it's breaking on every single network, it's probably the app. And so they actually pulled all these people off of the projects they were working on to study Pokemon Go. So I spent a couple weeks studying Pokemon Go. And what it was doing, literally I had to walk, and I had to, the app we use, I had to have my laptop tethered to my phone, so I'm like literally walking around like playing Pokemon. I borrowed the pram. I put the laptop on the pram, and I was walking around playing Pokemon. But the problem was, the way this app worked is it has to know where you are, and it has to know where the Pokemons are and the gym. Pokemons, or is it Pokemon, plural? It's probably Pokemon, that's the plural. And then it has to know where the gyms are. It has to know where all these different things. And the app, had a bunch of API calls back to the main server. And rather than using one connection, where's Doug? Where are the Pokemon? They were opening 6 different connections per device to the main server. And so basically, if you have 10 million people using it, that's 60 million connections to the server, which is kind of called a distributed denial of service attack. So they were running out of IP and IPs, and so there were IP collisions. So you'd catch a Pokemon, but my IP is now on Rob's phone, and so like both of our apps crashed, and so that's why it was crashing so much. Anyway, just a side note, has nothing to do with augmented reality. I just thought it was really interesting. Like Uber had the same problem at one point. It was completely crashing. They were denial of service attacking themselves. So what would be even cooler is even like an app is awesome, but what if we could do all of this in a browser? If you can do it in a browser, then it's going to work for everybody immediately. They don't have to download an app. So we're going to talk about what we can do today and what's coming in the near future. So I'm going to talk about a tool called A-Frame. Has anyone heard of A-Frame? Okay, that's fine. It's free, it's open source, it's built by the folks at Mozilla. aframe.io. All of the code all the examples I'm gonna show you are up on GitHub. And they're live on GitHub, so you can actually play with them and do whatever you want with them. So that's, it's there for you to play with. And so we're gonna do an example here. And this tweet was pretty viral a couple of weeks ago. But I saw a guy building a website with no React, with no Vue, with no Ember. He just sat there writing HTML like a psychopath. And that's what I'm gonna do here, because this is what A-Frame looks like. It's just HTML. This is like 12 lines of code. And so I load the JavaScript, and then I create a scene. And in the scene, I add a box, a sphere, a cylinder, a plane, and the sky. And it looks like this. That's it. That's the page. There's a box, a cylinder, the ground, and the sky. And we can walk through it. We can walk around it. Right? It's a virtual reality space in our browser. There's no physics. So like there's no gravity, like I can walk through stuff.
Is this any different from VRML that they used?
I don't know anything, I don't know VMR, it's probably very similar.
Yeah, okay.
Because that sounds like it's HTML based VR, right?
Yeah.
Based on the name. But you have positions X, Y, and Z. See, I'm learning. The positive Z is out of the screen, so if it's in front of us, it has to have a negative Z value. So we want to build a gallery. So I built a bunch of walls, and they're just 5 planes to build 4 walls and a ceiling, and it looks like this. It's A-frame. And this is all on, I've never used this computer before, so this is all like just using the internet, so it's super fast, right?
How are you setting the colors and?
I'll show you that in just a second. So I mean, that's pretty smooth, right? Like that's pretty incredible. It's like
say buttery smooth, right?
And it's like 12 lines of code, right? And it's in your web page, and it just works. So one funny thing about this is that for the planes that are building the walls, I've only defined one side of the plane. So the other side of the plane is invisible. So if I walk through it, like there's nothing on the other side. So how did I define the colors? Right, I find the position in X, Y, Z. I rotated some of the walls so they're on different sides. Mm-hmm. I gave them a width and a height in virtual meters. And then I gave them a color. And so it's just a hex color. You can use, it's just CSS color. So you can pick any, you can say blue and it would work as well. And it just works. So this is really cool. Like we can do virtual reality in the browser. It will work on any computer. It'll work on any phone. Like it just works. But we want to build an art gallery. So we're going to add some art. And so A-frame room art.
I'm sorry, from
Yeah,
what
go
I've
ahead.
seen so far, that doesn't really, I'm sorry to rain
Yeah.
in on your parade, but so far that really looks like a game engine or any kind of
Mhm.
3D engine running in the browser. So
Right.
what makes it AR?
We haven't gotten to AR yet.
Okay.
And actually my AR examples, I'm going to need to put my computer back up.
Okay.
But we'll just have to switch computers, I think. Yeah.
Still, it's really cool for like 12 lines of code.
Yeah.
All right, so I added some art here, right? So I just put Scream in a box.
And Scream's got like some sort of.
I gave it some depth. I gave it a little depth. And if you go to the other side, it's on the other side as well. So it's just on all 6 sides of the box.
Right.
And I just defined the box to be sort of like a pizza box on its side.
And can you set restrictions for the browser to not go through the wall?
No,
Right.
there's nothing preventing people from walking through the wall. There's no physics dimensions to block you from doing that.
Right.
So the way I did this is I downloaded an asset, which is Scream. I named it Scream. I hosted it up on Cloudinary because it's an image hosting CMS. And then on the box, I just applied the Scream source to it, and it put Scream on the box. So the box is the front wall. It's 2 meters up. And the way I came up with the dimensions here is, according to Wikipedia, it's 91 centimeters by 73 centimeters. So that's the dimensions, right? That's the actual real size of it is right there. That's the size of it. So you can animate stuff in VR, right? So I can just call just art 1 here. And it rotates, so you can see all 6 sides, right? You can make it spin, you can do all sorts of fun things. There's animations built into A-frame. It's all super well documented, so you can check that out. And so the animation here, I just have it for 5 seconds rotating on all 3 axes, do it automatically and do it forever. And it just works. But we want to build an art gallery, so we can go big. This is an art gallery. We can do any art we want to, so we can add the Mona Lisa, we can add Picasso, we can add Starry Night, and we can add, these are all images. You notice this is an asset, but I've added Michelangelo's David. And they're all in the same room, and we can see what that looks like. So we'll just come back over here. Was it 1? I don't remember. Nope, it was 2. All right, so there it is. And so I don't know if you've ever been to the Louvre and everybody's waiting in line to see the Mona Lisa and there's like 1,000 people and it's teeny tiny. All 3 of these pieces of art are really teeny tiny. But we can get up really close and we can, you know, the guards wouldn't let you get that close at the Louvre, right? But we can get up really close and you can see there's actually like, you can see there's a little bit of a shine from the, like there's a glow from the light, the ambient light built in.
What is that?
The Picasso's over here. I actually had to shrink the Picasso down because this Picasso's 5 meters wide to fit it there. And so of course, if I'm shrinking stuff down, I could also make them bigger, right? Because we've got high resolution images of these, right? So we can get really close and we can see that. And then David is over here and he's 3D model. And right, you can go all the way around him and he's, you know, there's a 3D model. And interestingly, he's hollow, but it's easier to go in from the side. You can look up through his head.
Whoa.
I'm not gonna look this way because that's not safe to do in a public place. But like he's hollow, so we can, like, there's David. That's all super cool. Like, I think that's really neat. We can do this all in one place and you can have all this art running anywhere. So of course I have a bunch of different boxes. They're all different sizes based on the size of the art itself, according to Wikipedia. This is the bigger Starry Night. I scaled it up ×3 to make it 3 times bigger. And then the 3D model is Michelangelo's David, and I put it just behind me, and we saw all that. But we can go big. Like the ceiling I have there is sort of cool, but if we really want to go, if we really want to add some art, right? We can do anything we want. Whoa, I just walked through David again. Sorry about that. But you know, you can add the Sistine Chapel, right? We can put all of this stuff in the Sistine Chapel. And so the way I did that was, obviously I took this image off of Wikipedia again, and apparently the Vatican is trying to copyright all of this stuff. So if I disappear, we know why that is.
Because you went through David's butt.
Yeah, because I went through David's bum. Yeah.
If you're into banking, that's right.
So I just put a cylinder on there and 180 degrees of the cylinder. The theta is how much of the cylinder I show, so I only show 180 degrees, and then and I turned it so it was properly put on the ceiling. And there's dev tools with A-frames, so if you don't want to like trial and error with it, there's actually dev tools where you can move things around and place them, and it's all in your browser, so it's all really easy to do. The GLTF model, I got this free off of Sketchfab. There are a bunch of websites where people build these things, then you can pay to download them or you can get them for free. David was free. GLTF is a format for these 3D models. You can export it from your favorite 3D rendering tool and you'll get a GLTF file. It works in all the browsers. It's basically a zip file, and when you open it up, you have a binary file, a GLTF file, which is like the XML or the JSON that ties it all together, and then a bunch of the images that get wrapped around all the points. The binary file has all the points. Now the problem with these GLTF files is they are, just like when you take a photo with your camera, it's the high resolution version. When you export something from a 3D rendering tool, it's the super high resolution version of it. You can put it on the web, but it's 25 megabytes, right? That's pretty big. Can really slow things down if you're on a slow connection. That web page I was just showing you before I optimized it was 30 megabytes, and that's probably too big. So we're going to talk about optimization because like my passion is web performance, so like I can't help but not bring that in. All right, so A-frame, there's another script to add augmented reality. So I've added a second script. It's the augmented reality script. And we have AR markers. And so this is where we get to pull out our phones. And if you can use the URL, but if you just scan that barcode, we should get an augmented reality experience. And maybe I'll switch to my computer so we can get it for the live streamers at home or for the video watchers at home too. But if you scan that barcode, well, they can do this as well. So if you scan the barcode and then hold it up to that marker once you open the web page,
Right.
Does it work?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, it's getting to work for you. Great.
So if you guys can see, you might have to come closer because the QR code.
And if there's glare, it sometimes doesn't work.
Is it working for you? Are you I think you be a little bit closer and
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to switch. I'll work on switching the machines up here while we.
So
If you click on that,
is the
yeah.
place where the object is being positioned.
It's being positioned around that marker with the black frame around it. So it's positioning.
allow.
You have to allow the camera because we're dealing with cameras.
How cool is that?
That
You can just implement that anywhere.
Yeah, so you could put this. So what's great about this is it's in the browser, right?
Yeah.
So if you put this on the side of a bus stop, people could get the augmented reality experience immediately. They don't have to download an app. They've got 2 minutes waiting for a bus. They can do augmented reality. They're
your bus will look like.
exactly maybe. So you have to actually zoom out a little bit. So you have to get the whole
Okay. Which way?
no out. Zoom, make it smaller,
Okay. Oh, it's not working.
or back up maybe. You need to get white around. You need the black and then the white around it as well.
Are you? Oh, you're already on it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think your camera might. It's really zoomed out, like for some
It's
reason.
really zoomed in.
Or like zoomed in.
Oh. Start again.
Yeah.
This way.
Yeah, but you need to be on the web page.
Yep. So if you go in with your camera, we will tap here, and then you'll see you'll need to tell it to do. Oh, that's strange.
Yeah.
For some reason,
It's coming now.
yeah, your camera is.
Super zoomed in.
Super
So
zoomed.
do you, oh, I know what it is. Do you use a bigger font to read web pages?
Maybe.
So if you have a zoom set up on in your browser, it actually zooms in on the camera as well. So you've got a zoom built in on your camera, unfortunately.
It does work though.
It does work. Just give me a second here while I switch the computer here.
What I might do is, that's a good angle actually, because I'll show the guys up on the web what it looks like. Here we go.
All right, and then I can do it as well here.
Yeah. Okay, now it's stopped working.
Cool.
It's not
That's what it
finding
looks
my-
like.
Yeah.
And it places it, and then if you
Yeah.
walk around it, from the side.
Okay. Yes, okay, so now it's, oh no, come on.
It's not working?
No, it's working.
Is it?
Yeah, we're ready to, I'm just gonna switch. I constantly, let's see if we can do this. So it's gonna look exactly the same here in just a second. But what I can do is inspect this. And so now this is my phone. Oh no, come on. Where's the URL? I have a few tabs open. Here it is.
Yeah, it's working.
So now I can go to my presentation here. And again, it'll work. So like, if I hold it up to there, so that's live on my phone and it's working. And you can do multiple markers, right? So the hero marker is giving me the Mona Lisa, and it's a box. So if I scroll up, if I go up a little bit, you can see that it's a box, and Mona Lisa and Scream are on all the sides. You can create your own markers. And so the guy who built the JavaScript library basically built a web page where you upload an image. And so the QR code I created with the QR code generator, and I send it to the marker tool, and it creates 2 files for you. I'll just cover that up. Oh, wrong. There we go. All right. It creates 2 markers. It creates a .patt file, which goes onto your web page, and it creates a PNG, which you can use like we're using here in the PowerPoint. And so, if you give me a second here, new.
So that pattern file, is that the QR code that you saw? And that's
So the .patt file is just a file. Sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once here. The .patt file is what the browser uses to identify that shape in the AR, and then the PNG is, you know, what you print out and put. So GitHub, Art Gallery. So I have a bunch of markers here, which we'll just open up. And me not being super creative, I made really big numbers in Word, and I took a screenshot, and I made, right? And so, so I created a bunch of patterns. And so what happens is you create a marker, and if it finds the marker 1.patt, it shows the Mona Lisa, right? I mean, this is just HTML referring to this external file to show the Mona Lisa. And so I can open up, move this.
It's not the Mona Lisa.
That is not the Mona Lisa, but we'll get there. Copy. Again, me not being super creative, like what files do I have on my computer that I can use? There's a picture of me because I had a picture of me on my computer. All right, so if I come to Chrome Inspect, the number 1 shows the Mona Lisa. And like I was saying earlier when we were having a little bit of trouble, you need to get, it needs the white around the side. If I move my presentation over to where the black overlap, it can't find it. Right, I need that little bit, I need that black and white change there. So the 1 is the Mona Lisa, right? The 2, oh, I hit it. There we go. The 2 is Scream. The 3 is the Picasso, right? And it fits onto that pattern marker. And you can scale it based on the size of the marker. So if I made it bigger or smaller, it would appear a different size. If I go over to here, it's a lot bigger because the size of the marker is a lot bigger. The number 4 is my favorite. Let's see if it loads this way. It is the pigeon view of David because the base of the David is the bottom. Oh, it came unplugged. Oh no, I see what happened. Here we go. Right, so this is the view that if you're in Florence, right, and now it's finding all of those as well, right? So now this is the top, right? anyway, you get the idea. You can do all sorts of really neat things with this. The other cool thing is you could do this with JavaScript. I just built a second page. And so this second page has different art. So you could imagine you may like Impressionist art, you may like Cubist art, right? And everyone could get different art in the same, they could have a different experience with the same markers getting different content. So for example, number 4 doesn't work with this page because I broke the code, but number 3 does. And so I did Beatles covers, right? It's the same, right? It's the same marker, but the page is referencing a different URL. You could do that with JavaScript. So you could have it randomly, the 5th person gets a different image, wins a prize.
If you could turn it just so that the guys can see that one as well.
The number 1?
Yeah, that one. And just turn it
towards the camera.
So,
is that in the camera?
Yeah, that's in the camera now, so they can see.
Well, that's kind of cool. It's like in like 6 different places in the camera right there. That's sort of crazy weird. Yeah, so, and then like you saw like here, it was finding all of them because it was finding the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? It's finding all of them and overlaying them, which is kind of neat too. So like this is really neat because we can now do augmented reality. You still need these markers. So there's like this thing you need to put in physical space to add the augmented reality into the world. I'll put down my phone here really quickly and make the screen bigger. All right, we want the images to load quickly. Like this is, I did this on a slow connection and you can see like Starry Night just doesn't load and that's kind of a crappy experience. So optimizations for images. When I first built the page, the Starry Night from Wikipedia was 1.8 megabytes. That's too big. So let's look at the optimizations to reduce the file size. It's based on 3.js. 3.js requires that all of the images the dimensions be a power of 2. So it was resizing it to 1024 by 1024. But I know that every single device that downloads this is going to resize the image to 1024 by 1024. I might as well do it on the server rather than having every single device resize it. So I did that. And the cool thing about Cloudinary is a cloud-based tools. I just put the height and width right there and it resizes to the image for me on the fly. So I don't have to open up Photoshop or anything to do it. It just does it. So the other thing that I found was it was downloading all of my images twice. So this is Chrome DevTools. I was downloading all my images twice. So why was it doing that? Well, the way 3.js works is because it was from a third party, I was violating the cross-origin policy of the browser of 3.js. And so it's like, you didn't use a cross-origin element, so we'll download it again with the cross-origin element. So it's just downloading all of my images twice. So the fix there was to add the cross-origin element to my tag, and then it only downloaded all my images once. Then I did some more optimizations. I lowered the quality of the image. So you can lower the quality of the image to where the human eye can't tell a difference. So that makes sense. I automated the format of the image. And so Cloudinary will say, oh, he's using Chrome, I can serve him a WebP. WebP is it's 10 years old, whereas JPEG is like 27 years old. So it's got better compression. It's a smaller image for the same quality. So I could take Starry Night from 1.8 megabytes to 320K. That's a lot faster. That's going to download obviously a lot faster. I went a step further and I made it 512 by 512, power of 2, right? And that took it down to 93K. So now I'm going to get a really fast loading experience. These GLTF files were ginormous. I got this down to 2 megabytes, maybe 3. There's a tool called Draco Compression, and what that does is it looks at all the points in the binary file and removes a bunch of them. So the quality goes down a little bit, but it got it 10% the original size, so it sped up the page enough that it was worth it. So now we're going to come into what's coming in the future. And there's this new WebXR API that's going to be in all browsers that's going to let us do AR in the browser natively from this API. This is a screenshot I took from earlier this year. You can see down here it says unstable API, anything you build is going to break. It's now past that. It's actually a stable API and the things you build will actually work. But the example I have now is still from when I first wrote the talk, so it's an unstable API. And so I have to use Android 8. It requires Chrome Canary from a year ago. And you have to turn on a bunch of flags and ARC, or there's a bunch of stuff you have to do to make it run. I've got it all set up on my phone, so it'll work. Of course, Chrome Canary is now way past version 70. I don't know what the current version is. It's a lot higher than that. So I have to prevent my Android from updating Chrome Canary every night. You know how your phone constantly updates all the apps? It takes a lot of time to get this all set up. You have to download the APK from like one of those sketchy websites and sideload it. Excuse me, I'm gonna get some water. So because I do this demo fairly regularly, I don't update my Chrome Canary. So what this does is it can now identify floors and walls, whether it's horizontal or vertical space, and then you can add things to those spaces without the use of markers. So we're going past the markers a little bit, which is kind of cool. So I've got a demo, and so I just have to open up that. I have to open it up in Canary.
So if you build something right now,
It'll work.
it'll work.
It's behind, so you can build it right now. You need, you need a, what do they call it? I'm blanking on the term. You have to sign up for it, and you can build it, and God, what do they call it? It's like a pin or a cert or something. Like you can, an API key. If you get an API key, you can start doing some of this stuff and playing with it, and it'll work. It's going to be in Chrome first because a lot of the experimentation is being done in Chrome, but all of the browsers, all the major browsers have said they will support this API going forward.
Even mobile browser.
Yes, mobile browser. I'm going to do it right here in this mobile browser.
All right.
So let's close these.
A-frame. How do you get the A-frame?
A-frame is supported in all the browsers. If you go to aframe.io, you can build the web pages right now, and that will work on any browser right now, and it just works. So I'm going to open up this. This is in that version of Chrome Canary, and so it says, basically the warning page says this is an experimental API. The first thing, when I hit Start Augmented Reality, it's telling me to move the phone around because it's trying to figure out what's a wall and what's a floor. And so you see this anchor thing? This is telling me that it's found a vertical surface, and if I tap it, it adds the Mona Lisa. And so the Mona Lisa is actually now sitting in space on this table. And this is why I bought this long cord at Flying Tigers. I can walk around it, and it kind of sits in the room, right? It's just kind of hanging out in the room. And with JavaScript, I just have a counter. Oop, it put it sideways again. But now I have Starry Night, and they're just hanging out right there. And it's a script, so the first one was supposed to be Scream. So if I reload the page, we could try to get Scream in the room as well. I'll do that really quickly. So then again, it's going to tell me to move around a little bit so it can find out what the room is. And obviously, like this white wall, it can't figure out what's going on. There's just not enough texture to it. But there's enough right here that it added Scream. And I'm not sure why it's doing it sideways, but again, this is the alpha version of the API, so these things are getting better. And then maybe we can put, the Mona Lisa on the wall over there and Starry Night over there. And it remembers where everything is, right? So it's like, this is pretty cool. Like this is augmented reality in real space, and it's remembering where things are. There's a little bit of drift. What if I come back, like they're still kind of hanging out in the same spot. It knows where they are, and they're hanging out. Like, I think that's super cool. This is all, it's just a web page.
Could you potentially put video content instead?
You can put video content in there. So I have an example in A-frame where I have videos playing on all 6 sides of a cube.
Wow.
So you can do these things. And what's really phenomenal about that, if you think about it, is when you're walking around, a video is normally rectangular. But if you're walking, you get all sorts of weird parallaxes. So all of a sudden the video is on a trapezoid and it still plays and with a really high frame rate. Like, it's really cool. And they're actually examples of, Mozilla has a website called Hubs, and we can play with it maybe later, where you can basically join an island and we're all hanging out on the island. And it's so like you can have video conferencing. And you could imagine you could actually watch a movie with your friends, right? You happen to be in a different time zone, but you want to watch a movie with your friends. You can all go into a virtual conference room, watch the movie on the screen, and you can all be in the same place watching the movie all at once. So you can sort of like bring that, you know, sort of Second Life sort of idea into these virtual things, but it's all in the browser. Right, back to the presentation. And what's really neat about all of this is, I'm going to talk optimizations again. This wavy hand thing is a GIF. The little anchor thing was a PNG. We've got an off by 1 error, right? It's 1025 pixels wide, so like it has to get resized every single time it downloads. So we're going to optimize this. I have a talk on image performance, and animated GIFs are really inefficient for a lot of things. This is like the only place I think an animated GIF is appropriate because it's transparent. GIFs have transparency, so it's a video that's transparent. So it really works well with augmented reality. However, we only really need that space. Like, obviously this transparency is going to compress really well because it's transparent. But what if we just resize it? So I resized it to be 512 by 512 and only show the moving hand a bit. And then I made it 256 by 256, which took this animated GIF down to 174K. The PNG, I could have probably made it an SVG, made it really, really small. But resizing it with Cloudinary, I took it down to 2 kilobytes. I was happy with that because I did, in SVG, I would have had to do more work. With Cloudinary, I just put some parameters in the URL and it did the work for me. So what's really neat is that web page I just demoed for you is 600 kilobytes. Wow. Like, augmented reality in the browser for 600K. Like, that's blazing fast. It's going to load on any phone. And like, the median web page on mobile right now is 1.7 megabytes, right? For like your cat's WordPress. Right? But I built an augmented web page, augmented reality with 11 requests and 605 kilobytes. Like, and if you think about that, like most of it's this stupid animated GIF, right? So like augmented reality in like 400 kilobytes is pretty mind-blowing to me. Like, and it works in the browser and it'll work for like every single mobile browser. And to me, like think of the things we can do with this. Augmented reality is available today with A-Frame. This new augmented reality API is coming. It's not processor intensive. It doesn't use huge amounts of data. Like, it's here and it's super cool. There's some demos that we can do. It doesn't really do well with video, but if you go to Google and you search, if you have they call it an AR capable Android phone. If you search for tiger or shark, you can actually add a shark floating in the room. We can actually try it. Maybe we can get it like with my phone on the screen. But if you search for, I'll just do it right here. If you go and you just search for shark, I can't put it up on the screen because it kind of comes out of the browser into a different tool. But if you go down, it'll say shark, and then it'll say, meet a life-size shark up close. Can you put the camera onto the screen up there?
Yeah.
It'll be like sharks all the way down, but whatever. Is it up there?
Yeah, I can see it, yeah.
Oh, I meant onto that screen.
No,
no, probably not. All right. So, but it says meet a shark up close, and you say view in 3D, and it thinks for a second, and like, it does the hand wavy thing. Slowing down. I think I have like 3 AR pages open on my phone at once, but it'll actually put a shark floating in space in this room. If you do the tiger, it'll sit right on the floor and growl at you, which is, it's a little terrifying. Yeah, I have too many. If you have a lot of AR pages open on your phone, like you hit a level of like, yeah, my phone is just like, ah.
Yeah.
But you can do that. IKEA has an app, and it's an app. But if you download the IKEA app, you could say, I'd like to buy a Billy bookshelf. Will it fit in my room? And it'll scan the room, and you go, and it'll plop the AR bookshelf or the AR desk in your living room, and you can rotate it to see if it'll fit against that wall. Wow. So like, there's some fun, silly things you can do with AR, but there's also a lot of like really cool applications where you could use this in real life, which would be really fun, and I think really useful. Another example I've heard about is if you go to the Colosseum in Rome, you can rent an iPad and it'll actually rebuild the Colosseum when you hold it up. This is what the Colosseum looked like 3,000 years ago, right? And then you could imagine as the technology gets better, this is what the you could actually have different scenes for different eras. This is what the Colosseum looked like 2,000 years ago. This is what it looked like 1,000 years ago. And you could have different scenes with people in different dress walking around. Like you could actually show the history through augmented reality while people are in the space. Like my kids would love that stuff, right? Like there's just a lot of really neat things that we can do with this. And it's all in a browser. Like it'll work for anybody's phone. I think that's really cool. So with that, like I'd be happy to take any questions and we can probably stop the streaming. But yeah.
Okay. So.
And I totally host my phone.
So I'll just come back on and, let me just make sure I'm stood in the right place. Okay, guys, well, thank you, obviously, if you've been joining us on YouTube, or if you're watching this on a live replay. That was such an amazing talk, 2 sets of talks that we've had. I've seen some incredible things, like mind-blowing when you actually took your camera and put the Mona Lisa right there. So yeah, that kind of stuff is just incredible. So if you want to ever find out a lot more about this kind of stuff, please check out our meetups. Like I said, we're on YouTube. And if you want to come here in person as well, that would be great, because then you can actually get to speak to and talk to and hang out as well with all of the speakers that we have. So with that being said, thank you very much for joining us if you're on YouTube, and come check us out at some point in the future. Bye-bye.